Welcome to Voodoo Whiskey Gaming, and this is my late review of Devil May Cry 5. I played it on the Xbox One. It's also available on the PS4 and PC. So let's start with the story, where I would normally say some stuff goes on and then shit hits the fan or shit goes sideways. Well, this game really just kind of starts off with shit having gone sideways. I mean, the events of shit going sideways are literally the beginning of this game. It's not like a bit of stuff, then things get crazy. No, it just goes straight to things have gone crazy. Nero gets drawn into all of this. Yes, Nero is back from Devil May Cry 4. He gets drawn into this because somebody comes and takes his demon arm, so he's kind of left with one arm. Which that gets him paired up with new character Nico, who is basically the granddaughter of the person who made Dante's ebony and ivory pistols. She makes Nero a new mechanical arm that he can use. Dante is sucked into the events of a new demon uprising by a character named V, both of whom are playable. Dante's friend brings in Lady and Trish, so that is basically where all the characters get brought into this game. And like I said, it's a new demon uprising, but this one's a little different because it's really fucking up a major city. A giant demon tree is being grown, people are being killed and used to feed it, and I'm not gonna say much more because then I would get into spoilers. That being said, I did enjoy the story. There were a few moments where I felt like the script could have been a little stronger, but overall I enjoyed the story. I liked the twists and turns of it, even if they weren't crazy, and I did see some of them coming. As for the audio, once again, this has a very high energy soundtrack like you would expect from any Devil May Cry game. I really like the soundtrack. It gets you into the combat, it gets you into what's going on in the world at the time. It's just a very exciting soundtrack. I also love the voiceover work in this game. I think it's very good. I think they got good actors for the new characters. Dante and Nero still sound really the same as they did in the previous games, and I like that, although I will say Dante's voice and his look do seem a little off. I think that's a bit more of a visual thing. They gave him a beard and it just makes him look much older, and he doesn't sound much older. Not that he really would be, because he's a demon and doesn't really age that much. Well, half demon. As for the sound effects, I really like the sound effects, and they had a lot to do with it because you have 3 playable characters this time, so each one has their own sound effects. Because they each have their own weapon set. I mean, Dante once again has multiple weapons. Nero has his sword, his gun, and V has his own way of fighting, and it leads to a lot of different sound effects, and they all work and sound very good. I do have one quick complaint with the audio, and that was there were a couple of cutscenes where the video and the audio were completely out of sync, and it was distracting. It wasn't the sound effects, but it was the voiceover, and that was out of sync, so you'd see V's lips moving, and then the audio wouldn't match, and then it would keep going after he was done talking. So as for the gameplay mechanics, this is once again a third-person action game, just like any of the Devil May Cry games have been, and I like it. I think they've always kind of had it down pat. This one, though, is a little unique in that you play as 3 different characters throughout the entirety of the story, and there are times where you can choose which character you would like to play as. You can play as V, Dante, or Nero, and I really liked that. I think it mixed it up because while some of them control similar, specifically Nero and Dante, they do have very different skill sets, and it really adds a different layer to the game. I found it kind of interesting that the 3 different characters are kind of like easy, medium, and hard in my opinion. I'm basing that specifically on how easy it was to get an S ranking in fights, and I found V was like easy mode, Dante was like the medium mode, and Nero was kind of like the hard mode in my opinion. Specifically because V was just very easy. You could stay back and do a lot of damage and move around pretty freely. Dante, free movement, can switch through a bunch of different weapons, which makes it easier to build combos and get a higher ranking. And then Nero, he's got his gun and his sword, and he's kind of stuck there. You really have to be a much more skilled player to get the higher rankings with him. Or at least that's how I found it. For the most part, I felt like the gameplay worked very well, although I do feel like the dodging mechanic, this kind of goes into controls a bit, could be a little better, specifically because you cannot roll forward or backwards. You can only jump forward or backwards, whereas you can like roll or dodge from side to side. The gameplay itself is very similar to previous games. It's fairly linear, and your goal is to go from zone to zone, kill all the monsters, complete smaller objectives possibly, and while in combat you need to basically get a high style score, which you do from combining a variety of attacks, hitting your enemy in the air, juggling them, rushing to them, beating them as quickly as possible. Now, as for the controls, like I said, I wasn't in love with the dodging mechanic, which is a bit control and a bit gameplay, but that being said, I did find the controls very responsive. If you tap a button, it will work. If you move your stick in a certain direction, it will respond quickly and accurately. At first, I didn't like where the lock-on button was, so I went into the controls, and guess what? They're highly customizable, and I love that. I was able to remap where the lock-on button is, and it varies from character to character where you might want it because of their different fighting styles, but I like that it's very easy to customize. Now, a kind of gameplay, kind of control thing, I'll just throw it in here, is the camera. Oh god, the camera. While you do have somewhat free reign over the camera, there are times where it gets stuck or it will jerk around in weird ways, and it can heavily affect your combat. It admittedly never got me killed, but there were definitely times where it was a hindrance and it was a bigger threat to me than the enemies. Lastly, the visuals of this game. Holy shit, it is a great looking game. Graphically, this is a gorgeous game. It's astounding the amount of detail and work that was put into it. I guess it's not really that astounding looking at what Capcom has been doing lately, but I gotta say, just wow. My only real complaint ties back into the audio again, and that's Dante's gray scruff because of his gray hair. It makes him look really old even though he's not really old. It was just kind of weird. I guess there was one cutscene that I absolutely could have lived without because it was just, yeah. Didn't dig it. That being said, the gameplay graphics and the cinematic or cutscene graphics were just wow. The amount of detail, the way the characters were designed, just every little thing about the graphics really impressed me. I've got to say, what Capcom is doing graphically right now is just fantastic. I'm really in love with their visuals. So to wrap this up, it's really not that hard to see where this review is going. While I do have a few small gripes, the overall product is fantastic. While the main campaign is not that long, it is replayable with New Game Plus. There are added modes like the Blood Palace to just give more replay value to the whole package. I really enjoyed this game. To put it simply, Capcom right now is just straight up killing it. They are doing fantastic, and I want that to continue. To put it simple, Devil May Cry 5 is 100% a buy. I fully recommend this game. I had a ton of fun with it. Okay, so in the comments below, why don't you tell me what is your favorite Devil May Cry game? And yes, I will accept DMC because I actually enjoyed DMC. I know a lot of people weren't fans of it. And as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. And if you like what I'm doing in general, sure, subscribe. Have a good one.